Welcome, listeners. This is United in Green podcast. Today, I have with me my good friend Will. How you doing, Will?
Good, and you?
Not bad, man. Had a great weekend, and we have the new guy, the new kid on the block, Tyler, the creator. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm very, very honored and excited to be here.
Excellent. We had Tyler on the very first episode of United in Green. Um, he's he's the de facto leader of our supporters group. Um, and I think Will and I both enjoyed that pod so much that we said let's get Tyler back on permanently. And this is where we're going with it, man. This is our first podcast breaking down the games. So we had two games. We had one away game, Boston Bolts in the rain. Nice win there. And we had our home game, which our first home game was on Friday, starting off from Memorial Day weekend. Nice to see the fans back in the stands. I wasn't there personally, but I had a tournament to go to with my son, so unfortunately wasn't able to be there. But I think Will was there, correct?
Yeah, I was, and it was really great to be, back in the home stadium. The fans were really up for it. It felt, a lot livelier than the first game of last season. I'll tell you what, we weren't the only ones drinking in the parking lot this time. There were a number of different groups, and you're like, oh, this little thing I love is now, everybody's, in a sense, and it was great to see. It was busy. It was a sellout crowd. I'm told by the Twitter. And there was a lot of new stuff on offer. We had food trucks this time. Everyone's raving about the new porta potties from Wasted. Shout out Wasted. We had a really great time. Weather was great. And the game was, was fantastic. So it's great to be back in the home confines.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
also not there, but it was really cool seeing it from afar, and getting that perspective of the game as like an outsider. And I was at a wedding, sort of checking, or it wasn't the wedding itself. I'll try to be clear about this. Checking in during the welcome dinner and watching highlights, but just seeing the crowd, seeing the turnout for game one of the season was phenomenal, and it's just really cool to see it that distance perspective of like, wow, this is how it looks to people outside the game. That's just like fantastic. And
I
a great
was I
result
was
as well.
I was in a similar situation, Tyler. I was actually had that Needham tournament with my son, and I know one of our other supporters group members was down there as a coach with his club, and we went out to had like a team dinner, and I met Ian from Vivid Coffee was down there, and we were watching we were watching while trying to on our phone actually while trying to corral our kids and have a great time with our kids at the same time, but and entertain everybody else, and that was around us, which is what I do. I like to entertain people. I'm kind of a goofball, but uh it was a neat perspective, checking in on your phone, watching the stream, and I gotta say we have the best stream in
Oh,
probably
for sure.
USL 2, USL 1, maybe up through the championship. But um it's a neat experience, and I'm glad to have seen that. Will, you got out to the game. So I mean, I don't know if we have to talk too much, about Boston Bolts. Like we said, it was in the rain. It was a nice 3-0 victory. We had goals, from Nacho and Zach Zenge. And I don't know if you guys want to offer any perspective on what you saw. That stream isn't that great to watch.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. The rain was pretty heavy, pretty consistent throughout the game. The stream was not the most enjoyable thing to watch. And the atmosphere wasn't really there. So it didn't necessarily, I think, lend itself to the best game of football, but I think the guys were clearly up for it. I think they dominated possession. I think, 3-0 win, you take that every single time. I'm not really sure how much we can glean from it, just because again, the away day and the rain conditions. But it's great to start the season off with a win, of course. Every win counts.
It was really interesting to me from having I went over to Virgil on Tuesday to watch the sort of the first practice of the season, and just thinking about that, the crew going from practicing for the first time together on Tuesday, it was Monday or Tuesday, to playing a game like 4 to 5 days later. And the result is, I think, speaks for itself. It was 3-0. It was a pretty dominant performance, but just like the level of cohesion and sort of consistency with that little time spent together was what impressed me. Like, could have been 1-0, could have been 3-0. I think that's the scoreline is ultimately inconsequential, but the fact that these guys had just been spent all of like 3 or 4 days together and still put in a performance like that was really interesting. And I think we only saw that get better going into the second game with like an additional week or two of time. And but yeah, just the pace at which things kind of clicked was really impressive.
Will, what were your big takeaways from our first home game? Like this was a big deal. We just talked about how it was a sellout. The crowds were popping up in the parking lot. So it's not just us anymore, right? Our little group. But like the atmosphere in the stands, did you feel like the players were feeling it in that game? Like, what was your perspective in that game? Because from my perspective, watching it, it was wild there.
Yeah, and first I just want to go back really quick to the Bolts game.
Sure.
We can't move on without saying that, perhaps 2 goals of the season, Nacho's opening strike outside the box was fantastic. And then Zach Zengi's volley goal to finish off the game. I mean, we're talking about what a beautiful goal that was. So I just wanted to shout those out, 2 really talented looking players. But yeah, as far as, the home opener and the atmosphere, I do think that the players were quite surprised with how, intense it was. I really do. I think that a big game was talked to these players to convince them to come here was the atmosphere and how the fans, are going to treat them. And I think that was their first real experience. And, I mean, the crowd was loud. It was really interesting because from where we were standing over in the Green Mountain Boys section, the crowd was so loud you couldn't even hear Tom, the announcer, for pretty much the entirety of the game, which shame. But it really goes to show, it was loud in there. It really was. And we have multiple drums going. We were chanting on the megaphones the whole time. And I think that, it really, affected the quality of the players, because while the score line was the same, they looked electric on Friday. They really did. And I think that's just a sign of what to come. It's early in the season and we have a huge test on Saturday, but so far what we've seen, I mean, these guys look like the real deal this year. I mean, they look really strong.
From my perspective, watching that game, actually watching both games, the dominance in the midfield was a testament to how well these kids are prepared, previously in their college teams, how well they're coached, and I think it's also a testament to how Coach Pfeiffer, built the team, and it allows that defensive back line to kind of play further up, to play a higher line, and the midfielders can get, they can get into the action a little more on the attack. It really didn't seem at all at any point in either one of those games where I, was worried even a little bit. I know that the dominance in the defense and on the shots taken in the home game against Albany was something like 27-4, and I don't think Albany even had a shot on target in that game. We've played both of our goalies so far, and neither one of them have had a lot of work to do. I really feel that dominant midfield is going to allow us to not just defensively lock things down, but also to be super effective offensively. You saw that with Gavork. Like, that dude is super fast. He's super fun to watch. I was talking to Coach Davis, Stage Davis, the other day, and he was telling me about how that guy, how he moves so quickly And as he's coming down the wing, he'll open himself up like he's going to cross a ball, and then he closes himself up really quickly, and then opens himself back up just as quickly to be able to get a ball in, or to just blow by the defender. Like, we have some super talented players, on this team, and it's not just even in, the guys who have started both games. We have guys coming off the bench that are good. We have a lot of really good returning players. So the quality of this team is probably a little better than last year. But so far I'm getting the same kind of feels.
It's really an amazing combination of returning players and new players, and those two elements combining in a way that are just super exciting, and you can just see things already clicking in a way that I would not have expected 2 weeks in. I mean, I think, it's not surprising that our back line and our midfield is rock solid. There weren't any points during the Albany game where it felt like there was a real threat. Like, to your point about, number of shots taken, like, I don't think anywhere on target. Even on their breaks, they never had the numbers to really feel like a real threat. And if it was like a 3-on-2 or a moment or something like that, you had like Pachella and Ashford just like eating up acres of space. It just feels like a really solid backline midfield. And on top of that, like, yeah, we are absolutely blessed with like blistering speed this year. Like, watching like Prego and Messer moving down the wings, like, those guys are serious threats. Like, that's like a lot of speed, a lot of talent. I see a lot of balls getting crossed in, a lot of like just like amazing attacks starting with those guys, and that's before you even get to like Zengi and Diarby, and just like the pace we have up front. And is just, if I were a defender, I'd be terrified and not want to step onto the field looking at that lineup.
Yeah, and you mentioned returning players, and that's what I wanted to talk about is the captain, Jake Ashford. He had, for the level, one of the best performances I've ever seen. I mean, he was imperious. I mean, his ball distribution was incredible, but also, the step up, cut off the pass, was constant with him. And, he combined with Ndai in midfield and sorry, I'm blanking on and Pachella in the midfield, cutting off, winning second balls, distributing, cycling. The amount of possession we had, I don't have the exact stat, but it felt like the entire game, the ball was in our possession, and it really came to this, because this cycling that was happening with the two defensive midfielders and Ashford distributing out to, the wings and the backs, it was repeatedly cycled back into, attacking wing play. And then you have Zengi and Lorech and Darby, and as this rotating focal point. It was really dangerous. And yeah, you're right, it's so early in the season. It seems like they have such a coherent idea of what they want to do. For USL2, with basically a brand new team, it's really impressive how connected they look so quickly this season.
I was talking to when you're watching the Boston Bolts game, friend of the pod, Sim McCann, stopped by to hang out, and it's all around good dude. And I was asking him about this season. They were like 2 days into training, and I said, tactics wise, how does it feel to you compared to the first season? Are things changing up? Are you learning new roles? What's the general vibe so far? And he was like, oh no, it's basically the same system. We brought on players who fit the system that we had. And I think that's maybe why things are clicking so well so quickly, is that as opposed to the first season where you're seeing who you have as players and then seeing what sort of system you can build with those pieces, you're looking at like, you have like the institutional knowledge of the returning players who can implement the system, a rough idea of what the system is, and then new players brought in who fit that system. And it's working, whatever that sort of like weird alchemy is, like, it's clicking in a really like just phenomenal way. And there are Premier League teams that have like months and months of training to get up to speed, and sometimes years, and it takes them a long time to perfect that sort of like fluidity. But this just seems like, to the coaches and players' credit, like an immediate hit the ground running sort of success.
Yeah, and what I noticed is that at least for Friday's game, the subs were mostly players that were already on the team last year. So you had Charlie Adams come in, you had Clardy come in, you had, Bolio come in. I mean, these are players that have already been here for a season, and now they're coming in perhaps maybe as backups this season, or they'll be starters. We don't know, but it seems like there's multiple layers now of the players who get the system, because I think we can agree that while it was impressive last year, there was a moment we were all concerned when we had all these players going back to their colleges, could we keep this progress going? And now I'm pretty convinced that we've demonstrated after 2 games and heavy rotations that these players get this system. And I think that, the next man up philosophy is pretty evident here. Everyone's expected, whether you're, a nailed on starter or you're, closer to, being a rotation player, to operate within that role. I don't think that the coach is going to be changing up tactics based on the subs. I think the subs are supposed to go in and fit that role. So I don't think the system works to fit the subs. So I think that could be, really potent, as we get further into the season.
I mean, it looks really potent already, just off the bat. These guys are, like we said before, like these guys are coming from colleges. They're all coming from different systems. They're all coming from, from different backgrounds. Some of them, they're coming in playing different positions, it really is amazing to me that in like a couple weeks time, they could be that connected. And I think, I think a lot of it is that these are young kids. They're easily molded, easily shaped. But I think that, the coaching staff has chosen these players specifically to fit their mission and to fit their system, and whether or not, going forward, we're going to have the same success, or if this, first couple of games is just an aberration, who knows? We're still going to have to, put up performances. We have a lot of competition in this league. Pioneers are, and Seacoast are no exception, right? So I'm just super excited. I can't wait to get out there this week. Tomorrow we got a game coming up against CF. What is it? CF Mount Royal, coming out of Montreal. It's a friendly. It's the first international friendly for the team.
Yeah,
I guess we'll call it international friendly, right?
it's international friendly. Yeah,
Why not?
Next to an extra polish.
And then we have Seacoast coming up. What do you guys think about, like, these guys coming in playing, possibly some possibly coming in playing, added minutes before coming back into the league game on Saturday?
Well, I think that we'll probably see some pretty heavy rotation tomorrow at the friendly, but it'll be interesting to see, what that level of quality is with perhaps the guys that aren't considered your nailed on starters. So, I'm really curious to see what it looks like. I'm excited to see some rotation and see what the other options are. So, it's a friendly, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think there'll be some serious rotation, and I think, with an eye on the end of the season, there'll be, like Will said, there'll be some folks getting a chance to get out there and get a run around and play and show what they can do, with the assumption that at some point they will be stepping up, and that there is that sort of expectation that you're ready to go when you get the call. I feel like we got lucky as a club to have, and this is, again, no disrespect to Albany or to Boston, to have a bit of a soft open, and at least 2 or 3 games to get some spins in before facing either Western Mass or Seacoast. I mean, they're perennial favorites, and so I think, it's just the reality of the situation is that they're going to be the ones that are going to be the toughest challenges for us, and to get 2.5 games in beforehand is great. But yeah, I'm guessing we'll see, a lot of new faces on the field, which is really exciting as a fan to see these guys that we've read about and maybe seen some highlight clips of, but haven't seen in person yet.
Yeah, and obviously the big game this week is Seacoast United, and last year they were first place in the division, and I'm not really sure what to expect of them this season. As we've talked about, there's a lot of rotation and new blood that comes through on USL2, and we don't really know what their early season form looks like. They've played only 1 game so far.
Against Western Mass, right?
And it was against Western Mass, and it was a draw. So we really don't know what they're going to look like. And, I'm sure that they're going to approach this game with a lot of planning and understanding that, we're probably one of the teams that they do need to beat to have the chance to get into the playoffs. So I think it's going to be, we're sitting here talking about our amazing start, and I think a lot of, that validation is going to hinge on Saturday's game. I think it's going to be a massive, massive game, and a game at home where we absolutely have to win. This is a short season, and I think that big games can be this early in the season, and I think this is one of the biggest this season.
I just I like the look of Seacoast. I like the way that they run their club. They're quickly shaping up to be like one of our big rivals, or our big rival, being from the upside down Vermont. Seacoast draws. They don't just draw from college teams and that kind of stuff. They draw from their own youth academies and their own youth programs. So those kids are taught the system from kind of like day one, and they bring them up through it. And by the time they get out of high school and into college, they could draw from that, and they have the extra added bonus of that youth academy and those youth programs all over New England. Really, they have them they have Seacoast United is in Massachusetts, it's in Maine, it's in New Hampshire, and that seemingly for me is why they're constantly kind of upper echelon of our division, and upper echelon in USL too. And like Will said, it's an absolute must-win game. I think that the fans have to make Virtue Field an absolute fortress for our club, and as fans we have to put pressure on those opposing teams. And Seacoast United is they're not going to come in afraid of the Vermont Green, and they play to a crowd, but not a crowd like us. They have a good fan base, but they will want to be playing in front of even a hostile fan base. Sometimes that works people up, that works teams up, and I'm looking very, very much looking forward to that game. With regard to Montreal, I just can't wait to get out and actually get to that spot in the stands where we love to stand and cheer and fight for our club. It's going to be so exciting for me. But it looks like we're kind of coming up on time here. If anybody has like any closing thoughts you guys want to talk about, like, just kind of bear with us, fans. We are just kind of starting out this process, and we're trying to feel out what this podcast is going to be. I think this is a great start tonight. I think we've talked about a lot of stuff that we wanted to talk about and get through this. But if we have maybe any closing thoughts or any more thoughts that we want to discuss, we can just go for it. I mean, time is our friend, guys.
Yeah, I think there are two things that I was thinking about leading up to this podcast. One was sort of just how for the team, for the club, for this podcast, for the supporters group, the first year or whatever time period through, the effort it takes to get something up and running, figure out what the hell it is, how it works, what's working, what's successful, what people like, how to get it out there, how to get other people excited about it. That first rotation, the effort that goes into getting that stone rolling is massive, no matter what it is. If there's any sort of like new venture, creative or otherwise, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of mistakes, takes a lot of missteps. Second time through, even if it's just like a slightly different, short timeline in between efforts, it's infinitely easier. It's still hard, but it's easier. And I feel like we're seeing that with opening game this year versus last year, like team cohesion at the start of the season this year versus last year, like the quality of play, the people in the parking lot, the like interest from outside folks in what the club's doing, what the club stands for. This second season just feels like really special already. And I think it's largely a product of the work that we put in as supporters, that the club has put in, that the players are putting in, the coaching staff. It just seems like everything is like clicking into second gear. I've used the word click like 1,000 times. I'm sorry. things like shifting to second gear in a really nice way this season. And, coming into the season being excited about how great last season was, but knowing that this season is going to be bigger and better has been phenomenal. And I also think, to go back to your point about Seacoast, like they've had years and years and years to get their system running, and they have all this amazing sort of continuity between kids coming up through their system, knowing how to play to the system, just all the logistics behind running a club. So I think with each year, Vermont Green is going to be more and more a regular contender for winning the division, and we'll just get better and better, which is, to me, deserved and super exciting. My question for you two, predictions for Saturday's game, and any early faves out of the new guys on the team.
Go ahead, Willie. I'll let you take this one because I've already got mine lined up.
So, it's gonna be a tough test. We don't know how good Seacoast are gonna be. We can generally assume they're going to be strong. I think that, we've shown early a lot of fight, a lot of attacking power. So, that said, I'll say 2-1 to the Green, Zach Zangi goal, second half. That's my prediction.
Love it.
Wow, I just muted myself. That was awesome. So as far as my predictions go, my predictions usually go south. I have another podcast that I do, and my predictions are generally opposite. So I'm gonna try, Tyler, for you and for all the fans of United in Green and fans of the club to start off on a good foot this time. And so I'm going to agree with Will that we are going to win. I'm going to say it's going to be 3-1. I think Vermont's got a lot of firepower. Seacoast doesn't necessarily know what we're going to bring in either. I think Seacoast is maybe a little bit easier to predict, knowing the style of their play, but maybe less easy based on the unknown quantities, which are players. Which players are going to be coming up through. So I'm going to say it's going to be 3-1 for Vermont Green. It's not going to be an easy game. I think it's going to be, tough, probably into the 60th minute. I think Vermont has too much speed. They're going to run them off the ball, and they're going to wear them out, and that wearing out is going to come through that midfield, through that dominant midfield. So 3-1, my early favorite for new guys. It may be just because, Will and I interviewed him early, and I got to speak to him at the mixer. Zach Zangi. He's a brilliant kid. He's exciting. He's excitable. The dude always seems to have a smile on his face when he's playing. And, that's what I love. My son does the same thing when he plays. He could be dribbling down the field, fighting off dudes, and he's got a smile on his face because it's, you can truly tell that Zach loves to play. I honestly believe that, he's gonna rack up a lot of goals this year, and he's got a lot of great players to give him that service. And I'm actually I'm still high on Nick Pope, even though he hasn't featured a lot yet. Alfie Nick Pope, Jesus Christ. Alfie Pope. Sorry, Alfie. That was the first bungle of the podcast, I think.
Now I've made a couple, so don't you worry.
So anyway, so Alfie, I think Alfie's gonna, he's gonna get that play out there. I'm high on him. I think if we have a prototypical center forward out there, goals are gonna start coming hard and fast. We don't necessarily. We have plenty of players that are good enough to just keep rotating too, and keeping legs fresh, and we don't have to have guys out there for 70, 80, 90 minutes, and playing every single week. We don't need that, and we don't have to have that. And I think that's going to be a huge, huge benefit to this team.
Yeah, I think we will be a team that scores a lot of goals. I think even in like the last game, there were half a dozen chances that were within inches of being
It
goals that
should
could
really
easily
have
been.
ended 3-0. You're right. I mean, the only reason was because their keeper had a
He
world-class
had some
performance.
just amazing saves.
Yeah.
There's a couple that clanged off like the woodwork. Like it wasn't like we eked out 3 goals. It was 3 goals that could have been 6 to 8 goals on another day. So
The
yeah,
number one refrain I heard from people after the game was it should have been 7-0. A number of people.
Was it a Nick Pope style performance or?
don't try to justify your misstep.
I've
Nice
got to.
try.
I've got to. I've got to. So yeah. So we are all predicting a win. Tyler, you didn't give us yours really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to back you on this one. I think 3-1 sounds right to me. I think this will be a serious test. It'll be a really good early season test of where we sort of slot into the overall division. And it's not going to be the make or break game, but I think it's going to be as early a definitive result, one or the other, as you could ask for. And I think we have the scoring capabilities. I think I would predict another shutout just based on what I saw this past game, but I think that Seacoast says will be a much tougher team to shut down than our previous 2 ventures. And out of respect to them, I'll say they'll get one in at some point. But yeah, I'm with you. 3-1. Let's do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that I don't see teams scoring on us right now based on the last 2 games, but just respect to Seacoast to give them that one in the prediction. But it does feel hard to see where the goal is going to come from because the other teams really haven't sniffed at it. They even really got close. So we'll see.
Well, I think that is time, gentlemen. And for myself, I always like to say to tell people, to be safe out there. There's a lot of shit out there in the world, and it's kind of hard to navigate that. So I always sign off my podcast saying, "Be safe, everyone." And I want to thank you guys. I love spending time with you guys, and I love to have you here. And this is going to be a great season, a great discussion going forward. And I want to thank each one of you. And Tyler, you have anything to say as we sign off here?
Thanks for having me. This is going to be an amazing season. If you haven't been to a Vermont Green game, I'd highly encourage you to attend one because it's just truly something special. I'm not sure why you'd be listening to the podcast having not been to a game, but in the off chance you are, come on out. It really is like a phenomenal experience. The people, the support is just above anything I've ever seen for a USL2 team. Slightly biased, obviously, but that's I think a pretty safe assessment. Come on out, hang out with us, make some noise. What we do in the stands and what we do to support this team has a direct impact on how they play. I can't tell you the number of times I heard from players and coaches that the atmosphere absolutely feeds into the players, and they, when you're on tired legs, when you're banged up, when it's the 85th minute and you're looking to make a tracking run all the way back, like it helps to have people cheering you on. So if you're not a Vermont Green fan, that's fine. Support a local soccer club of some kind. It's just amazing. So thanks for having me, and I'm excited for the next pod.
And Will?
Yeah, just say come hang out with us. It's the best thing you can do this summer. And we're family friendly and inclusive, and we're going to keep it that way. So please come join us. Bring your family, bring your kids.
All right, guys. And for me, again, be safe and up the green.
Green.
Up the green.
Boom. We are done.